Well, yeah, good morning. So we're going to continue our series, God with Us, today. We're going to be in the Gospel of Matthew, and let's just go ahead and read our opening text here. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry, it'll be on the screen. Matthew 1:23, Behold, the virgin shall be with child and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which is translated, God with us. Lord, we come to you today. Thank you for the songs that we've got to sing. Thank you for the kids coming up and singing their songs. And Jesus, you're the main attraction here. You're the main focus of what we do, the heartbeat, the breath, everything. And you are with us. Some folks maybe don't think that today. Maybe they need to be reminded that you're with them. Maybe they're going through a difficult time, but you're with us. And I thank you for that. I pray in Jesus' name, amen. So last week we talked about the fact that God is, Jackie forgot her glasses, so she's in trouble right here. Can you give these to Jackie? Because she can't read without her glasses. And hanging out with our kids, not being able to see, that would be rough. Don't believe me, go hang out with our kids, all right? They're a little crazy. But last week we talked about that God is a God who meets us in the valleys. That we may enjoy mountaintop experiences when everything's going good, but we really get to know God when things are not that good. We talked about meeting God in the wilderness, when we have decisions to make and we're really just not sure which direction to go and what that looks like, and that our deepest needs become gifts if they drive us to depend on God. So some of the things you're dealing with right now that don't seem like blessings might be a blessing in disguise. You just don't know it yet. So today we look at God in the midst of our storms, that God is with us through storms in this life. And we're guaranteed difficulty in this life. The storms really represent those difficult times that kind of come out of nowhere. They just kind of boom, pop up, and there they are. These can be storms of betrayal or depression or addiction or cancer. You can go on and on and on. And I think it's times like that where we ask questions like, okay, where's God in all this? Why would he allow this to come my way? If he knew it was going to happen, then why did he allow me to experience what I'm experiencing right now? Because if he loved me, he would just shelter me from all of this stuff. Why doesn't he do something? Maybe you can relate with some of those frustrations. But what I want to assure you of is that you should, in looking at storms and the unexpected, never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. Doesn't mean that he's not there. It doesn't mean that he doesn't care. Let me give you a little example today in the book of Acts. We'll look at a guy named Paul, which many of you are familiar with. If you're not, Paul, it's interesting. I was talking with a guy the other day. There are different reasons why I believe in the resurrection of Jesus. You might say, well, it's because you grew up in church, Brent. Well, yeah, I grew up in church, but there comes a time where you have to own your faith, right? You can't just believe something because mom and dad believe it. And I'm thankful for my upbringing. I'm not downplaying that. But there has to come a point of ownership, of do I believe this because my parents do? Do I believe it because the pastor does? Why do I believe it? And so I was talking about some of the reasons I believe in the resurrection, because let's be honest, that's the hinge in which Christianity moves, right? If the resurrection isn't true, then we are all just wasting our time. So why do I believe that Jesus showed up, died, and 3 days later came back to life? Well, again, I have many reasons, but let me give you just a few real fast, okay? And then we'll get into our text about this guy named Paul. One of the reasons I believe in the resurrection, first of all, is we know Jesus died. You may not believe the Bible is the Word of God, but let's just take it as a historical document for a second. In this historical document, it talks about Jesus dying. You're like, well, yeah, but a bunch of his followers wrote this. Well, one of his followers, John, who was at the crucifixion, who's no doctor, he talked about when Jesus died, he got stabbed with a spear. And when they stabbed him, it says that water and blood came out. John doesn't know what that is, just water and blood. What was the water? Well, the water was fluid buildup around Jesus' heart because he was in a state of what's called pericardial effusion or something like that. I'm not a doctor, but cardiac arrest, and basically fluid had built up around his heart. So when they stabbed Jesus, the fluid is actually the fluid. It's not water. It's the fluid that was around his heart. I mean, Jesus, he went through hell, basically. And he would, think about it. He would have to survive not just being nailed to the cross and all these things, but a wound to his heart. And when you consider medical technology of Jesus' day, that wasn't going to happen. So we know he died, okay? How do we know he resurrected? Like, was it just this scheme? All these guys got together and said, hey, let's come up with a new religion. Here's why I don't believe it was just a bunch of guys got together and said, let's create something new. One, you wouldn't do it in Jerusalem, what they were trying to do. It was just the least likely of places, in that area to create something where you say, this is the Jewish Messiah. Two, all of these guys, except for John, were not at the crucifixion because they were scared out of their minds. They didn't want to die either. You could even call them cowards, maybe. So one question is why did these cowards just suddenly turn around and say, he's alive? Well, what did they have to gain? Did they have to gain wealth? No. Fame? No. All these guys died for what they believed. They saw something that totally changed them. And one of the clearer examples of this is this guy named Saul. So Saul's job was to try to crush Christianity. It says in Acts 8 that he wreaked havoc in the church. He arrested Christians. He hated Christianity. This man had achieved everything he wanted in the educational realm. He was extremely intelligent, and he had the job that he wanted, the standing in society that he wanted. You could say he had the American dream, sort of. He had accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish. So why does this guy who hates the church turn like that? Why does he suddenly change? You have to have an explanation for this guy. I mean, it's like, in a different sense, maybe, but maybe in the same sense, it's like Hitler becoming a Jew, I mean, this is something sudden, something convincing happened to this guy named Saul, where he's like, this Jesus, he is real, and he is alive. And he says in different passages, I've given up everything to follow Jesus. So there's a change in Paul. That is one of the reasons I think, hey, yeah, why did he change? What did he have to gain in following Jesus? He lost everything. It wouldn't make sense for him to do it if it wasn't actually true. And then James, Jesus' half-brother. So when Jesus is doing all these miracles, walking on water and raising the dead and turning water into wine, just doing all sorts of cool stuff, who doesn't believe in Jesus as the Messiah? His brother. Now, let's be honest. If your brother was Jesus, you wouldn't like him either, right? Your brother is literally perfect. He is not going to lie. So, I mean, if you and your siblings were doing something you shouldn't have done, let's be honest, we all have done that. Jesus would have snitched on you. He would have. Jesus, did they do this? And so maybe there's some animosity there, but he doesn't believe in Jesus as the Messiah during Jesus' ministry. He thinks his brother is crazy. And then something happens where this guy ends up writing a book in the New Testament and eventually dies for the belief that Jesus is everything he claimed to be. What happened to him? If he didn't believe in him during his life, why would he believe in him after he's dead? Maybe because Jesus resurrected. There's a couple reasons. I mean, there are more, but for the sake of time, it just gets the wheels spinning in my brain. And so we have this guy, Saul, who is also known as Paul. And this guy has spent the rest of his life passionately serving Jesus. And now he's on his way to Rome, and he's going to die there. He's going to be a dead man. He knows it. He's kind of said goodbye to different churches. And so he's on a ship. He's headed to Rome. And they run into some bad weather. And this bad weather is really bad weather. So much so that they try to stay in a harbor and winter there and try to ride things out. Paul's like, hey, maybe we should stay here. And the captain's like, no, we need to keep going. We got to get to our destination. We got to keep moving. This storm had just beaten them up. They're afraid they're going to run aground, and so they're throwing stuff off the ship. We got to lighten the ship. We got to be able to keep moving. We got to be able to maneuver. And it seems like they're getting absolutely nowhere. It's a storm. Acts 27, verse 20, now when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and no small tempest beat on us, all hope that we would be saved was finally given up. He says, we just concluded we were dead. All hope's gone. We're done. They'd given up hope. And friend, some of you are probably in a storm. I can't read your minds. But in this group of people, I guarantee you some of you are going through a storm or have been through a storm, and maybe you're like, my marriage is not going to make it, or I'm always going to be alone, or I'm never going to get out of debt, I'm never going to be able to have a kid, I'm never going to graduate, I'm always going to be depressed, I'm always going to be addicted, I'm always going to be in this place. There's no hope. That's a tough spot to be. And that's where these guys are. This storm is just kicking them in the teeth over and over and over again. And you feel like you just can't get anywhere. Verse 21, but after a long abstinence from food, then Paul stood in the midst of them and said, men, you should have listened to me and not sailed from Crete and incurred this disaster and loss. Paul warned them not to go. He said, don't do this. And so now you have Paul saying, I told you so. Nobody likes it when we hear that, do we? When you have someone in your life that says, I told you so. If you would listen to me, you would not be in this situation. See, it's tempting to blame our situations on other people or to say, hey, the devil did it. But sometimes the reasons we find ourselves in storms is because we make stupid decisions, right? We talked about this a while back. The decisions that we make today determine the story that we get to tell tomorrow. I mean, our decisions, there's a lot weighing on them, even though we may not think it. Sometimes we're in storms because we make dumb decisions. We spend too much money, we mouth off, we procrastinate, we don't listen. Your mama told you, your brother told you, your best friend told you, your pastor told you, you shook your magic 8-ball in your bedroom and it told you. I mean, everything has told you, right? You're like, no, I'm good. I'm going to do what I want to do. And you know what? Sometimes I think the Lord's like, okay, go right ahead. Go right ahead. I'm going to get what you want. Sometimes our biggest problems start when we start believing we can do whatever we want. But Brent, I can do whatever I want. Sure. And there's consequences when we have that mindset too. There are storms that can come and just kick us in the teeth. Maybe one of the reasons these guys had given up hope, maybe one of the reasons you gave up hope is because you made a stupid decision and you're like, I don't blame God for not wanting to help me in this. I'm the one who did this anyway. See, it's not the right mindset. We're going to be reminded that God is present with us even amidst our stupid decisions. Now, sometimes you're in a storm and it's not your fault. I mean, think of the crew on this boat. The captain's the one who made the decision, right? The crew's in the storm just as much as the captain. They're like collateral damage. And so maybe some of the issues that you have faced is not because of a decision you made, but a decision of that someone else has made. You trusted someone, and they stabbed you in the back. Your company, which you thought had your back, doesn't. Maybe your home life wasn't what it should have been because of your parents. Not decisions that you made, but other people made. And so you find yourself in a storm. The thing is, how do we react to it is the question. That's what we're trying to figure out. Because I don't think if I took a survey in this room like, hey, is your life trouble-free? Has it been trouble-free all the time? No one's going to say yeah to that. Like, one thing we can identify with is struggle and hardship, right? We can relate to that because we all in some capacity, in some way, know what that feels like. So how do we handle it? Acts 27, verse 22, and now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. This is Paul talking. He's like, calm down, guys. Now, if you read earlier in the chapter, Paul's like, we're all going to die. He even says that. He says, if you leave, we will all die. So why did he change his mind? Verse 23, for there stood by me this night an angel of the God to whom I belong and to whom I serve. An angel shows up. Like, Brent, that's crazy. Angel showing up. I mean, you believe that crazy stuff? I do. I believe a lot of crazy stuff. It might seem like repetitious because I say this a lot to my Bridgeway family, but one of the reasons I believe in crazy stuff, like a whale swallowing a guy and a bunch of animals getting on a boat, is because the greatest miracle to ever take place is that God created everything out of absolutely nothing. Amen. Out of absolutely nothing. I mean, nothing is nothing, right? I can't bust a dictionary out. It's just nothing. And God creates all of it out of nothing. That's why I see the order in our universe. I see the constants in physics, and you just see God's fingerprint on this. You know, your DNA has information in it. Where's the information come from? Because information just doesn't pop up. And if you can create an entire universe out of nothing, you can get a whale to swallow a guy and a bunch of animals on a boat. Like, that's a piece of cake, you know? Like, give me something hard to do. He can do whatever he wants. So I believe in the crazy. But to me, it makes sense. So yeah, does an angel show up and talk to this guy? I believe the angel does. Never let a presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. In fact, in Psalm 16, it says, I've set the Lord always before me because he is at my right hand and I shall not be moved. He is with me. See, the key is who's on the boat with you, right? You remember the time when the disciples were on a boat and Jesus was sleeping? Anybody remember that? A storm comes up and everybody's freaking out. We're going to die. It's going to sink. And Jesus is just passed out, right? You know that person that can sleep through anything? Just absolutely anything. That was Jesus. You know, he laid his head down. There's a storm. I'd be puking everywhere. I don't know about you, but the whole seasick thing, I'm done. Jesus, he sleeps. They wake him up. They're like, don't you even care that we're going to die? Just think, he created everything out of nothing. So he's like, oh, really? All right, I'll get up and I'll stop the storm and calm these guys down. So what does he gets up there? He's like talking to the wind and, okay, just stop. Like his eyes aren't even open yet, you know? He was deep in sleep. Peace, be still. Okay, we're good? I'm going back to sleep, all right? So, but the thing is, Jesus was with them that time. There's another time they're in a storm and Jesus isn't with them and they're freaking out. Of course, Jesus shows up. That's when Peter walks on the water. Pretty cool stuff. Peace isn't found in the absence of a storm. If you're thinking, Brent, if I just didn't have these troubles in my life, I'd have peace. Would you, though? I mean, would you really? Well, Brent, it'd be nice not to be going through the hell that I'm going through. I get it. So if you had no storms in your life ever again, do you think you'd obtain peace? I don't think so. Because peace isn't found in the absence of a storm. Peace is found in the presence of Jesus Christ. That's where peace is. He's the Prince of Peace. He came to bring peace. So yeah, your life could be storm-free, but I don't think you're going to be at peace. Because you were created for God. All things were created by him, and all things were created for him. So he made you for him. That's reality right there. He made you. You exist because he allows you to exist. Let's keep going, verse 23. For there stood by me tonight an angel of the God whom I serve, whom I belong, and whom I serve, saying, do not be afraid, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar, and indeed God has granted you all those who sail with you. Paul, you're not going down with this ship, man. Why? God's not done with you yet. You're going to stand before Caesar. I'm not done with you. See, as a Christian, I believe when God is done with me, I won't be here, right? I'm just passing through. I'm a pilgrim. And when God is done with me, and this flesh dies, and you put it in the dirt, don't bury me in a suit, by the way. I swear I'll haunt you. Don't you dare. One day, that's going to happen, though. I'm going to be gone. But I'll be more alive than I've ever been at that point. You see, if this life is just a bunch of random accidents, we were just random mutations over long periods of time, and then boom, here we are. From the goo to the zoo to you, you know what I mean? If we are just a cosmic accident, then really there is no point to this life. Sure, you can make up any meaning you want, but objectively, there's no meaning to your life. You'll just exist, and then you won't exist, and it won't matter what you did in the process. Well, sure, it would matter. I'll be nice to other people. In the long scheme of things, no, it won't. But see, I don't believe that. I believe we're not some accident, because accidents don't produce the complexity that we see. We are made with purpose. We were made by God, and we were made for God. And so God tells Paul, I'm not done with you yet. So you might be experiencing a storm, and God's like, you're going to get through this. I'm not done. There's other battles you're going to need to fight. I'm not finished with you. There's more opportunities for you to serve me, to be Jesus to others. I'm not done with you yet. And God will use the storm that you're in to impact other people. Yes, he will use the hell you're experiencing, Christian, to help other people. I was talking with Julia this morning. She's been 6 years cancer-free. Yeah. She can relate to a cancer patient better than I can, because you know what it's like. Maybe you've climbed out of debt. You saw this mountain. You thought you'd never get out of it, and then you did. You can relate to people. Say, hey, this is how we did it. Maybe you're in the bondage of addiction. She's not here today because her girls are sick, but Heather, who got baptized a couple of days ago, has been clean for 2 years. Amen. Heather can help you because she knows what it's like. Dealing with suicide? I can help you. I know what it's like to live through that. Lose someone unexpectedly, like a punch in the gut. Even worse than that. There are people in this church that can help you because they've been there. They know what it's like. It's something to sit down next to someone and say, listen, I know how you feel. And you really know how they feel. You know what I mean? Not this superficial surface. You don't know what words to say, so you're like, I understand. No, you probably don't understand if you've never experienced it, right? And if you're wondering what to say in times like that, don't say anything. Just be there, right? But if you know what they're going through, I know how you feel. And this is how God ministered to me through this. This is how I survived this. Verse 25, therefore take heart, men, for I believe God that it will be just as it was told me. He's like, I believe God's going to take care of us in this. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. But Paul's faith is not in the boat. His faith is in the one who commands the seas and the one who tells the wind which way to go. That's where his faith is. And friend, you can't control your situation. You can't control how long the storm lasts. You can't control when it starts. You can't control what people do or what people think. But you can control where you put your faith. You can control that. You can dictate that. Where can I put my faith? So friend, my encouragement to you today would be, put your faith in the one who's in charge, the one who created everything out of nothing, the one who came, he lived, he died, he resurrected, He's our source. He's our redeemer, sustainer, provider. He is everything. And peace isn't found in the absence of the storm. Peace is found in Jesus Christ. I believe that. Because he's my Emmanuel. He's with me. And so there are different groups of people in this room right now. Some of you are, you're followers of Jesus, and you kind of know what I'm talking about when it comes to these storms. Maybe some of you are followers of Jesus and you're just disheartened. You're like, man, Brent, did God forget about me? There's a reason you're here today, and there's a reason I'm preaching the message I'm preaching. Like normally, Sunday before Christmas, I just camp out in Luke chapter 2, The birth of Jesus. No, this is what God wanted you to hear today. He hasn't forgotten about you. Okay? He's not going to leave you. He's not going to forsake you. Remember those times where it doesn't seem like God is just showing up in magnificent ways? We talked about this last week with Elijah. You remember God wasn't in the earthquake or the fire, but he was in a whisper. Why was he in a whisper? Because he's close. So Christian, he's close. Maybe you're here today and you don't believe what I'm talking about. First of all, that's awesome that you're here too. I can understand that struggle. I was about 23 when I was questioning all this. I was in ministry, And I'm like, do I even believe this? That was like heavy stuff. I'm committing my life to follow Jesus. And I don't even know if I believe this stuff. Like, 23 was an interesting age for me. I just gotten a job at a new church. And I'm just scratching my head. I had some real gut check decisions where I actually got serious about it. You say, Brent, you weren't serious in the other years of ministry? No, probably not like I should have been. But it was like, all right, if you're going to commit your life to this, you need to know why you believe it, not just because this is how you grew up. You need to know why. Why do you believe Jesus rose from the dead? Why do you believe God created everything and nothing? Why do you believe this? And I had to really, at that point, take real ownership. Not ride the fence. This became just a forefront issue in my life, the forefront issue. I had to figure it out. And so, I'm thankful that God was patient with me. He said, Brian, I'm still here, man. I haven't forgot about you at 23, and I haven't forgot about you at 34, and I'm not going to forget about you at 64. I love you. I don't know where you're at today, but God loves you. Maybe you need to hear that. He's crazy about you. You're not an accident. You're not a random mutation over long periods of time, and then boom, you're just here and gone. And it doesn't matter. It does matter. It matters so much that Jesus, God in the flesh steps into our world. Like, I have a hard time understanding that, let alone other things, right? He steps into our world to die in our place. Why would he die in our place? Because we're all sinners. We're all screwed up. You're in a room of screwed up people. And we know it, okay? That's a good thing. You don't want to be in denial about you being a sinner because y'all sinners. Me too. And we know there's penalty for that. Plain and simple. You break God's law, there's penalty. Separation from God. God is not going to be in the presence of sin. And with us having it, we're in bad shape. Jesus steps into our existence. He dies on the cross. Why? Because if you break a law, there's usually a fine, right? No different than with God, but on a greater scale. Jesus basically pays our fine. He resurrects from the dead to prove that he is everything he claimed to be, because if he doesn't resurrect, he's just some other crazy guy who said, I'm God. So he resurrects. He's like, see, I can forgive you. I can change not just your life, I can change your eternity. But that ball's in your court. I'm not going to make that decision for you. So friend, if you're not a follower of Jesus today, you have a decision to make. You going with Jesus? Because you can deal with your sin yourself, or you can let Jesus take care of it. And I'm not just presenting this in a way this isn't some get out of hell free card. We come to Jesus because what he said's true. You come to Jesus, you're like, I come to Jesus, I get heaven, right? You come to Jesus, you get Jesus. Like heaven's a perk, You get Jesus. You get a relationship with the God who created you. That's what you get. You get life. So what will you do with Jesus? When we bow together, this is a time we call our invitation time.